Hello everybody and welcome to this latest video discussion as part of the RICS Tech Partner Programme. My name is Andrew Knight and I've been with RICS for over 11 years now. I sit within the regulatory standards and thought leadership part of the organisation, and my role is to look at the impact of data and technology right across the whole built environment. And with over 110,000 members working right across the property life cycle, all the way across land, planning, development, construction, brokerage, valuation, finance, property management and end of life, and indeed working across all those different asset types of land itself, infrastructure, residential, commercial, alternative and infrastructure. There's obviously a huge impact of data and technology in the way that real estate is managed and developed. And today I'm really glad to have Dominik join me from Arelio. So please do come on the call, Dominik.
Hi, Andrew. Welcome.
Great to have you on the call. And before we get into the kind of detail of what you do in the kind of data and technology space with Arelio, it'd be great to get a bit of a backstory on yourself. I know you're an RICS member of long standing, so it'd be great to have a bit of a background story and how you founded Arelio.
Yeah, very happy to do so. My name is Dominik Brunner. I lead a boutique consultancy company based in Munich, in Germany. We advise real estate organizations on IT, only real estate organizations, only IT. We are a real estate IT consultancy company founded in 2017. My humble self, I am in real estate IT since more than 15 years. I've worked for different companies in the real estate scene before, for Yardi, for Argos. I'm a chartered surveyor, as you did mention. So by now I'm heavily embedded in the industry, know all the ins and outs, and as such I'm the managing director of this company.
Thanks, Dominik. Now, as ever, the word consultancy is a wonderfully broad, all-encompassing term. Can you give us some idea of the kind of specific types of jobs that you take on, both in terms of the kind of sector and the kind of functionality and outcomes?
Yes, yeah. So our mandates do have different forms. They are always in the IT sector. One element can be a strategic advice on a digitalization strategy. This is currently very en vogue, and a lot of things going on there. And our clients sometimes demand some steering of the providers or some strategic advice on how to move forward on their digitalization strategy. It's also one, I would say, one classical mandate also is a software selection process. So as there is a lot of buzz out there in the marketplace, a lot of different solutions, often things get mixed up, often the loudest person just wins, which is not fair. We do have a lot of silent stars, we do have a lot of loud stars. For this, it's important to have some market knowledge, and we are very often leading software selections. Sometimes it's leading that on a formal basis and acting as a mediator, also inside of having an anonymous selection, at least in the beginning. Sometimes it's more of an informal input. Did you think about this or did you think about that? And then after the selection, of course, we do have the implementation, which we also sometimes lead. It's typically in the fund management, portfolio management sector, sometimes implementation of property management systems, also document management systems come inside. So the implementation of software that sometimes we did help select in the start. And a field that becomes more and more important for us and more interesting in this industry is data management. On that scale, we do have quite some contact together as well with RICS. I lead the competency group at the Society of German Property Researchers, GIF, and we work out data standards there and standards for document management systems. We work on applying that in practice, but lead some data collection projects. Meaning you're a portfolio manager and you will have property managers scattered across Europe, and you need to collect data together from them And of course, sometimes you do have software for that helps you, portal software where property managers upload things, but this alone will not make everything work. You have to convince each and every party to upload data. You have to go into the details. You have to make a project follow-up, and that requires knowledge. It requires patience. It requires some sway and some energy and some small project tricks to get moving ahead. Sometimes the question also is to create data structures for analysis of a portfolio. This has gained quite some momentum in the past, and which is an interesting part where we are more and more active is data conversion projects.
Yeah.
We do have one big provider who creates everything in, let's say, SAP, and on a continuous basis, we want to transfer all the bookkeeping data to another system like Yardi or whatsoever.
Yeah.
And can you do that for us on an ongoing basis, not only create this conversion and mapping and everything, but also run it and maintain it on an ongoing basis? And this is a bit of a new area. There are not too many houses out there offering this. Usually it's only the software providers themselves that provide it.
Yeah.
And this is not always the solution. Then you could go out to the market to go for system integrators, but they are usually not really sector specific, and then such a small project becomes a huge project or a huge program. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, that's an impressive range of kind of assignments you get. I was interested in the way you kind of highlighted that critical difference between the selection and the implementation process. And obviously, it's become a bit of a cliche to say that the real estate sector is, really digitizing now at pace, arguably having been a bit of a laggard, to use the phrase, being a bit behind the times in terms of digitization. So if we think of the last decade, perhaps the last 10 years, how have you seen changes in the way that people are selecting software?
Yeah, so 10 years back, to some persons 10 years is a long period of time, to some it's a short period of time. In the IT world, of course, 10 years is a long period of time. I was active in the scene also 10 years back, and it was always tough to convince others about the need for bits and bytes and to do something about it. And there were only a handful of people taking care of those things. It was a really niche thing. And those software selection projects have a complete different appearance than today. When software was selected 10 years back, I call it the sexy look and feel. It wasn't that important. It was, the thing has to do the job. You have a lot of questions that have to be fulfilled. You make a huge RFP, a request for proposal, with 100, 200, 300 questions, and the software has to tick all the boxes and has to make it. And if it looks awkward and like a thing from the previous century, who cares? All the boxes are ticked. Decisions that were made by the CFO, typically a very senior person from the finance sector. Everything has to work right. And I think this has certainly changed. Today, people that can make those decisions and have to make it, pretty often they are not out from the finance sector, but out from other different sectors. So they're more open to sacrifice functionality for a better look and feel. We have what I call the generation iPhone now on the levers, on the triggers, and try to convince a person who grew up with an Apple iPhone to use old legacy system data input mask. I say, what's this? That's previous century. I'm not going to do it, and they're not willing to sacrifice it. And if you approach them with a new solution, which just looks good, and that's the flip side, they might be deceived to say, yeah, it looks good, then it has to be good. So for that, it's important to go more into the market analysis and have more understanding of the market than before. We have seen the number of those huge RFPs also decreasing. When we make software selections, I do have a trade-off. Usually it's 10 to a maximum of 50 questions that is enough. If it's more than 50 questions in your software selection process, actually you did not do a good job. Most of the questions, they should just be answered as a matter of doing business of a professional software company. And to have too much questions, you miss the point. You don't see, you don't see the wood because of all the trees. Yeah. And you miss the point. You have problems with weighting the questions. You have important questions of other questions. You have to focus on the really important things. And what is underestimated is it's at the end it's the people. Some people will have to implement it. And what has to work is, yes, the software has to do the most important things that you want to do, but you have to trust in the company that they really can do what you need, and that's not only one function more or one bulb more. That is, you have to be convinced that they do have the right knowledge and the right mindset, and they're willing to work together with you on getting that to work. If you flood them, I have worked in software sales before as well. I know the other side, and we had one rule. If you are confronted with more than 50 questions and you didn't have contact with them before, don't answer.
Yeah.
Don't answer. You are just going to be counted out. You are just a runner-up. What's the sense of it? It's just to fulfill for other guys that you do have more than 5 bidders. Doesn't help anyone. You invest time. It doesn't help anyone. It's important to have a touch base with the market. Is this something you could do? Are you going to develop more in that direction, and so on? And then you develop a short list, and in the short list, then you can really make very tough comparisons. 5 functions are fulfilled. This is not fulfilled, etc.
But it does sound like it's critical. No, carry on.
Well, one last thing I want to mention is also it's a question of the nature of the company. The people have to fit. Only because one software provider fits for one company, it's maybe not a good fit for another company. A German fund manager is not a small private equity house. Some guys want to have a quick fix and are willing to sacrifice accuracy and just have projections and overviews. And other guys, they have to have everything to the point. It's different companies and different cultures, and that has to match together as well. And this was not seen 10 years ago. Just one solution has to be followed.
So I suppose that the major takeaways I would hear from that is, to some extent, less is more about that kind of vendor questionnaire in terms of what you're asking, and also that suppliers do have to deliver both things. They have to deliver the substance, the functionality, and they have to deliver the user interface as well that is seen as contemporary. So I suppose that's a good thing in terms of making vendors aware that they do need to think about the user interface as well as the functionality that sits underneath it.
Exactly.
And I suppose that age-old issue that people still want to deal with people, that whilst we're talking about technology here, that service element, that fit of the kind of people who you'll be working with is important on both sides. It's not just a transaction in that way, is it?
Yeah, exactly. We have this. That's one of the first discussion points as well. If you want to implement software for XYZ, it will cost you, and the cost, only a small part of that cost is what those guys are going to bill you. You have to invest manpower, or today's person power. Person have to be engaged into it, and its management attention. If you're not willing to provide that, then better stay with Microsoft Excel. It's not the things you're looking for, this is not Microsoft Word where you just double click in the app and say install. Sorry, it's not going to work. Yeah, and the danger is that, of course, there are a lot of persons out there who try to convince organizations that also business software works like an app you just can install.
Yeah.
Like data standard, double click, it's installed, and now it works. Unfortunately, that's not the way it goes in business software.
So over this similar 10-year period, what have you seen in the changes around that critical implementation piece? Because I'm sure you've seen many occasions where even if the selection process has been good, the implementation can often fall down. And I think, as you intimated, often that can be people issues in terms of the
Yes.
behaviors and the changes required, because so often it's not a technical barrier, it's really the responsiveness of people and management and senior sponsors to actually affect the change.
Yeah, that's right. It's a people thing. It's a communication thing. Question of commitment and what you want to do. What I think did change in the last 10 years is that we do have a much better success ratio. So today, IT projects succeed much more often than they did succeed 10 years ago. So the ratio is much better. In average, the customer satisfaction is higher with IT projects. That's the experience I make. There are more factors into that. I think the main factor is that those projects are more agile, like they used to be. Before the word agile was invented, I always used the word speedboat approach, and so also due to the way consumer software is designed today, where you have more and more solutions in smaller pieces, like this 28 or 200 apps you have on your iPhone. You have smaller pieces, and this thinking of smaller pieces now trickles down to business software implementations as well. And with those agile implementations, and with that, I do not so much mean that you have the word agile written on your project plan. That's not so important, but it's more important things to think in an agile way. And this delivers results and delivers customer satisfaction. So what I personally always have done in my projects is that I have a mantra that after 3 weeks, after 3 months, you have to show some results. So when you start after 3 months with your speedboats, you have to show some results. You can certainly not finish with your IT implementation, but something has to work. You have to see something. If you are after 3 months still behind the clipboard, it will be a challenge to keep people motivated.
Yeah. So it's that kind of agile sprint approach of, as you say, taking pieces of work, delivering a piece of work, moving on to the next piece, and showing that progress.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
indeed. Now you talked quite a lot about sort of data collection and data conversion, and I'm always kind of mindful that one of the challenges is around integrating different systems. Do you work as an integrator, and what do you see the challenges around that area of integrating lots of different platforms?
Yeah. So in fact we are becoming a bit of a small system integrator. And this is which I metaphorically say we are the Swiss Army knife. Yeah, we're a small company, and like a Swiss Army knife, we have different arms. We mentioned strategy in the beginning. Yes, strategy consulting is important, and we do that. And we're in good shape on that. But it also can go to the very details of the bits and bytes. And I think I mentioned it before that just some data transfer things, or have the data at this place and I want to have it appearing here, or a report here, and so on. There are a lot of instances where a lot of concepts are written. It's incredible how much concepts have been written in the last couple of months and years. But if we just would have a commensurate amount of realization of those concepts, then the world would be wonderful. And yes, we do write concepts, but what we also focus on is putting those concepts into practice. And that means getting your hands dirty and creating this database and writing those API. We do have some programming capacity on board, which enables us to act, like I say, as with army knife. Yes, to transfer this data from A to B, because you can discuss about transferring data from A to B for months and write a lot of concepts, but at the end, someone has to do it. And who is going to do it? If you just ask this one software provider who just looks at his software, it's not going to work alone, and the other one not. You could bring, I don't know, IBM or someone like that in that. This is going to explode the project, so you have someone to do it, and this is something we are doing more and more, and it comes more and more into demand as you integrate small pieces and want them to exchange data.
Indeed. So is there anything that your Swiss Army knife doesn't have?
There are things that are just beyond what we cover. So there are some areas which become more and more en vogue, which are just not our turf, and this is facility management, building information management. So going to the technical details of a property. I have to say it's an interesting field. It's important and so on. But from my heart, we focus on the commercial aspects of a property and the investment aspects of investment in real estate. And yes, the technical part is not in the heart, and if it's not in your heart, you better do not do it. Yeah.
Well, a final question, if I may, Dominik. You know better than I do that real estate is very cyclical in terms of, particularly from an investment perspective, in terms of the boom and bust, if that's not an exaggerated term for the way the cycle can work. And clearly, at the moment, we're seeing interest rates go up, so clearly that's going to affect yields and the market. Do you see that underlying real estate cycle affecting the way IT is being implemented and digitization is taking place, or are they decoupled? Is digitization going to carry on, or will it wax and wane as the market does?
Yeah. Maybe here my optimism, I'm always an optimist, and maybe my optimism prevails here. I recall the last big crisis we had, 2008, 2009, and the real estate crisis actually was, from an IT perspective, it did have effect, but those effects were positive. So back then, 2009, those in the aftermath, 2010, it was actually for software providers, it was a good time, because suddenly people had time for such a thing. Because up to 2007, everyone was busy, and you just have to make the next deal, and you're so busy with operation, well, making the next deal, getting the next equity ticket, etc., etc., etc. And this IT thing, so this, and you also didn't have any pressure to invest; it did go anyway. And after, so when a crisis had come, then the thing was, how do I differentiate myself from my competitors? If I'm an asset manager, if I am a fund manager, if I sell equity tickets, if I want to convince others to invest in my business, in my real estate holdings, what does me make a better provider than the guy around the corner? That was a question that was not raised before, but that did become apparent back then. And you can differentiate yourself by consistent operations, consistent reporting, you convince the others you know what you're doing. And I have the feeling this is now also becoming more important. So I would say this year and last year, the last couple of years, it was digitalization. Everyone does it, and it's wonderful. It sounds great, and I want to be modern as well, and that's great. Then you do have the effect. Yes, you want to, of course, you want to be more appealing on the labor marketplace. If you want to acquire a new workforce that are aged, I don't know, maybe 30 years old or so, and you represent them with old legacy software, that's just one black point, one minus point that you do have. But what is now increasing pressure, of course, is how I'm structured from an IT standpoint. And investors will ask, now comes the time where investors again will ask more things than before. You still have a wall of equity, but this equity asks more questions than it did 1 year back. And one question would be, how are you organized IT-wise? And it's not because you're curious and you want to fill out some forms, but if the shop you're going to invest a lot of money into, if they don't even have a good IT structure, then maybe other things are not well as well. And I have seen a huge correlation between a good IT structure and a good different organizational structure. And investors see this as well, and so I think it's actually for digitalization and for real estate, the current downturn, whichever size it will have, is a positive thing.
Indeed. And I suppose also that the pressure to report on ESG type of metrics as well, the need to, I think, be more transparent and have more data, I think, is going to lead to digitization just building and building, I think, isn't it?
Yes. ESG will be a driver. So apart from the market cycle, ESG, of course, will be a driver as well. Yeah.
Well, it's been fascinating to talk, Dominik. Thanks ever so much for your time today, and I look forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah, thank you. It was great talking to you.